All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Profitable Christian Business Podcast. I am overjoyed today to have my guest, Emily Hawkins. We are going to dive into her story, her faith journey, her entrepreneurial journey. We're going to get a little bit of some of her expertise as well that she will share with you. But I am, again, just so happy to have you here today, Emily. Emily, why don't you tell the audience just a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I have been a part of streamlining processes, people, and systems for about 2 decades, which is crazy because that means I started when I was about 7. I'm kidding. Um, but I work with small business owners, and they're making between $250 and $10 million a year. That feels like a big gap. It's not. Same problems, same issues. But we streamline processes, people, and systems to actually keep more money in the business by doing less. It's really fun.
Nice, nice. Just from what you said right there, I want to dive in right now, but we're going to dive in later. And I'm excited about that. But I like to start off with just some fun kind of questions, kind of getting to know you a little bit. So we're not getting so heavy into the business and faith stuff right away. So the first question I have for you is, what's something unexpected about you that most people would not guess right away?
Well, I cannot ride a bike or roller skate, which being a child of the 80s means I
Mm.
didn't really go to many birthday parties because that was like the roller skating rink thing. I actually went, but I just can't roller skate. My children have also tried to teach me how to ride a bike. I think it's a balance thing. I have
Mm.
zero of that. I have so many talents and anything on wheels. I'm okay in cars, by the way, but for, anything with self-propelled wheels apparently are not my friend. So,
Interesting. You're probably the first person I have ever met from that generation, my generation as well, that doesn't know how to ride a bike. I kind of expect it with today's generation. They're so glued to electronic devices that they would not
mhm.
learn. My daughter, we tried to teach her. She doesn't know how to ride a bike either. She can
Uh-huh.
run real well, but she
Uh-huh.
doesn't know how to ride a bike. So, um,
Yeah. Maybe I
really,
was
really
ahead of my
interesting.
time. I think that's what you're saying.
I think so. I think so. If you had a complete day free to yourself, how would you spend that time?
Oh my goodness. It would definitely be working puzzles.
Mm.
I am a puzzle junkie. I love a puzzle. One of my children loves them, the other one does not. So most likely I would be working puzzles with him. And then later in the day, my daughter and I would go get coffee and boba. So I like
Mm.
coffee. She loves bubble tea. Again, generational thing, right? And one of our favorite things to do is to go get coffee and boba and just talk. She's 12, and I just eat every second of that up. So it would definitely be spending time with my children. But that puzzle, oh, there's just something magical about working a puzzle that just feels special. I don't know why, but I love it.
I can see the tie between what you do and puzzles, right? It's all about
Mhm.
finding the piece that fits the solution. It all
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
Oh, yeah. There's so many parallels. And when I was a child, I would work puzzles. My parents would go to Sam's Club at the time. You could probably get this at Costco. And they would ask for the dividers. So if you were going to buy like Clorox or something like that, they put these flat dividers between like Clorox containers, Tide containers, and they would ask Costco or Sam's Club for those. And then my dad would cut them so that I could actually take my puzzles places with me in the house. And you could
Wow.
actually store it under a bed. We have a dog. I wouldn't do that now,
Hmm.
but it was a great way for me to be able to work a puzzle from anywhere and have the pieces all over the flat surface. So I've done it my whole life. And my parents used to say, you're going to be really good with technology because you have this stick with itness and you really enjoy like the solving part. I thought they were completely full of you know what, and they were 100% right. So there you go.
Wow. Um, Random question. What's the most amount of pieces of a puzzle that you've put together?
My son was asking me this the other day. It's not necessarily the size because I've done the 3D puzzles, which I
Mm.
don't actually love as much.
Mm.
The hardest puzzle I did was 1,000 pieces, but it was a black cat on a black piano. So the
Oh,
entire puzzle was black. So it wasn't the
wow.
size of the puzzle,
Mm,
which actually is a crazy parallel as well, because when I work with businesses that are making $250,000 a year versus $10 million a year businesses, I can tell you that it's not the size of the revenue. The complexity can be very hard in a smaller company because they need to scale more. And
mm.
then it can actually be simpler in larger organizations. So it's so interesting how, just like you said, you look at that 1,000 pieces and you're like, oh my gosh. But if it was actually all different colors, it would be simpler to do and more straightforward. So
Yeah, I haven't put together a whole lot of puzzles, but my tactic would be get the corners going first and then work towards the middle.
100%. It's totally the way that you should do it. And my son, he's 9. So he watched me do this with larger puzzles. And he's like, that is such a waste, because what you have to do is get the puzzle out, dump out the pieces, and start sorting them.
Mm,
And so the first thing you sort, like you said, is that outside edge. And then what I do then is, after I have the outside edge, I start sorting by color. Again, not the black cat on the black piano. That's not fun. But something that where you can kind of
mhm,
see in the puzzle, I sort that and then I work the puzzle. So the first few times he watched me do this, he thought this was such a waste of time. He was like, just start working the puzzle, like just find pieces that look
mm,
like they go together. And again, the parallels between this and what I do with businesses was so similar, because what I find most fascinating is the preparation and actually spending the time to slow down and put like things together, then go into action, ends up saving you in a business hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of hours of man hours, but from a puzzle perspective, my son started to see, oh, if we do this, it cuts down so much on frustration. And actually, you can mindlessly sort. So we end up having great conversations. It kind of
mm.
allows you to make it more fun. And so he's like, now I see why you do all of this. And some of my business owners also at the beginning get frustrated because they're like, I want this fixed now.
Mhm,
And I'm like, me too. That would be great. But I want it done the right way. So we're going to
mhm.
sort some things out. I'm going to ask you some great questions, and then we're going to go into action, and the action will move so fast that you will be blown away. But we've got to do some things before we get there.
Yeah, a lot of entrepreneurs were action takers, right? So
Mhm.
we just think if we just work at it enough, we'll figure it out. But too often, kind of like you say, we don't take the step back to see where all the pieces are, right? They have to be
Mhm.
properly
Mhm.
placed in order to do it most effectively and efficiently.
I think what we do is ready, fire.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's great. I actually am okay with ready, fire. But the other thing that you need to do is aim. And I want you to do it in that order. I want it to be ready, fire, put the thing out, see what happens, get some dirty data, is what I like to call that.
Hmm.
Because if no one sees your product or service, then there's no way of ever knowing if it works. So ready, fire, but then go back and aim. Look at that data. What is it telling you? And by the way, the great thing about data is that it's not malicious. It's not somebody telling you you're ugly. It's really just facts.
Hmm.
This many people took action on this or did this or joined your list or whatever else. Amazing. Amazing. Now you can go back to ready because you've got some data to fire again.
Hmm.
And you should be firing all the time, but not without that aim piece, because that aim piece is going to help you strategically move through and make the right decisions. And it's so much cheaper if you do it this way than constantly firing and saying, I'm an action taker, without actually stopping and looking at that data first.
Yeah, it's a pain to be moving quickly in the wrong direction and then have to
Yes.
retreat and go in the right direction. But
Oh my
yes,
gosh. Yes.
it,
100%.
it's really cool that just in these getting to know you questions, boom, expertise just comes to the surface and golden nuggets. I love it. I love it. Speaking of Ready, Fire, Aim, that was a great book. What was a recent book or podcast episode that really inspired you?
So I am such a dork. I love it. I own my nerdiness. I love math and I love streamlining processes. And I'm actually a part of a lean book club. So
Mm,
everyone in this book club is either an industrial engineer or supply chain. I have a supply chain background. And what's so fascinating is we actually read different books about process improvement, and we mix it up between process improvement and, of course, like personal development. It's
mm,
all kind of wrapped together a lot. But we read a book a few months ago that really stuck with me, and it's called Wiring the Winning Organization.
mm,
It's dense. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that some of the chapters, there's a whole section on simplification that is not simple that made me laugh so hard. I was like, this is like the funniest thing. But anyway, the part that really got me was the very beginning of the book, and it was all about slowification.
mm,
And it actually ties back to what I was saying about working a puzzle and how slowing down a bit really helps us see where the problems are and fix those. And it reminded me, I'm a big analogy person. It reminded me of if you've ever been on a speed train, which I have not, but I've watched tons of
mhm,
movies with speed trains.
mhm,
And if you notice, when they're at the station, you can see all the trees, you can see all
mm,
the leaves and the grass and all the things. But when they get going, all you see is a blur. Well, I feel like that's what happens in our business, especially when we're in that fire, ready, fire, ready, fire. We're going so fast that we're missing these beautiful trees and grass that actually, again, have the data, have the opportunities to share with us so many nuggets. Our customers on a daily basis are giving us the roadmap of where we need to go, but
mhm.
we're moving so fast that we don't stop and take a notice and ask more questions and go a little bit deeper. So that slowification to me, putting that language behind what I knew to be true was really, really fascinating.
Yeah, the ebb and flow, because often as entrepreneurs we hear focus, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that there's an ebb and flow, right? There's a time to focus and there's a time to also step back and kind of like you're
Mm-hmm.
saying and see what's going on. And then again, once you have all the data,
Mm-hmm.
hit the ground running again,
Right,
right?
right. Well, I love what you're saying because to me, there's focusing on doing the thing. And there are so many people that are not doing, right? They're
Hmm.
paralyzed, like it's got to be perfect. There's perfectionism and all that. Just do it, launch the
Hmm.
thing. And then, like you said, I would say focus on launching and then focus on that data point. So focus on, but again, don't spend a ton of time. I'd want you to spend 48 hours on that data.
Hmm.
And then what is it telling you? And by the way, the data is never telling you that your product sucks. I will tell you that right now. It's telling you that maybe your audience is wrong.
Hmm.
Maybe the way you messaged it is wrong. Maybe your headline is wrong. I
Hmm.
mean, I can name 100 things that are not that your product is bad because y'all, if you were just doing this, most people have not even seen your product. So it has nothing to
Hmm.
do with that. So data also helps you fix the right thing so that you're not just reinventing the wheel every time.
Yeah, that is such a good nugget, because I see a lot of entrepreneurs do this. They launch, it's
Mm-hmm.
unsuccessful, and they think, oh, it's the offer was wrong, right? And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times the offer or the product was fine, but
Mm-hmm.
because they don't have enough data to even
Mm-hmm.
support what actually was wrong, or that they just think it's and so they hop to another thing without really getting that one through where it needed to go.
All the time. I see it all the time with businesses as well, and even with team members,
Mm.
where you say, you know, Sarah, just using this as an example, Sarah sucks at her job. And by the way, I have an MBA, and sucks is a term that I learned in graduate school. I'm kidding. Um, but you know, we'll say that so and so on our team is not good at what they do.
Hmm.
And that's really easy. It's really easy to blame Sarah and Sarah's bad at her job. Why can't I find the right people? But if you stop for a minute, slowification again, slow it down. Why do you say that? Well, because Sarah is chronically doing this task wrong. Okay. If Sarah is chronically doing that task wrong, do you have anything in place You have verbally shared with her, this is incorrect, and this is the way it should be done. You have visually shared with her, this is what success in that looks like. And you've also taught her how to think through and ask better questions and feel comfortable coming to you. If you've done all those things, then yes, Sarah sucks. But I highly doubt you've done all those things. Anytime I have those feelings, I will tell you that one of those things is typically missing. I'm like, oh, I've given them no visual. By the way, a visual can be a picture, a screenshot. It could be a Loom video. It could be a standard operating procedure. I hate that term. I call it some other person because I want some other person to do the task. But I've got to lay it out so that they're set up for success. And then the other one is, did I actually have a conversation with her, or did I just get all in my feels and never actually tell her? And so those three are just huge.
Yeah, there's a leadership lesson in there. It's oftentimes when we blame the employee or even sometimes the system, it's not that, it's the not necessarily a leader, could just have been somebody that's put there to train,
Oh,
the
yeah.
trainer or the leader. So sometimes we have to look at ourselves in the mirror as an entrepreneur and say, is this really my fault?
And by the way, 99.9% of the time, it is your fault. And I want that to be a freeing thing for people, because when it's somebody else's fault, that's really hard to change. That's really hard to fix. But if I am the problem, oh my gosh, I can go look in the mirror and be like, all right, get your stuff together and let's figure this out. And I can change on a dime. It's so much easier. So I actually, when I was in the corporate world, I was in the corporate world for 15 years. I was a leader and I was a terrible leader. I joke that I had a revolving door in my office because I would just churn people out. And I was one of those people that was like, good work, good help is hard to find. Nobody works as hard as me. You know, the blame, blame, blame game. And one of the things I did was I said, all right, I'm going to put together a list of my dream employee. And this dream employee, I sat down, I was so excited, and I started writing, and I was like, they will never be late. They will never da 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 da. And then I was like, well, this really isn't a dream, right? This is just stuff that I don't want them to do. What would be harder is if I defined what I wanted. So I sat there for a minute, I deleted everything out, and I sat there for a minute, and then it just started coming out of me. It was like conversations we would have, and you know, what I was looking for, and how they would push me and all of that. And so I had this just masterpiece of a 2-page document, and I was excited about it for about 2.5 seconds until I realized, if those people showed up on my team, was I the person to lead them? And the answer was no. And that took me back in terms of, okay, if this person shows up, who's this person that's got to show up? And for me, that was a lot of soul searching and saying, I need to do this different. I need to do this different than how I've been taught to do it. Like I said, I have an MBA, I am global business. I have an undergrad in supply chain, which is a business degree. You can throw business degrees at people. That's fine. It does not mean leadership at all. I'd also been led by some great leaders, but they were great leaders because they were leading from authenticity. And what I was trying to do is mirror or parrot what I'd seen. But I wasn't that person, so it didn't fit me. So I ended up really revamping how I worked as a team that felt right to me, what I always wanted and what I felt my team needed. What was crazy was, after this whole revamp, those people that I was telling you about, that the dream employees actually showed up. 3 of them showed up. And I was able to revamp the team and create an organization that was the most profitable in the company. And my favorite thing was the day that I called those 3 into my office and I said, I want to read this to you. So I read them my dream employee. Then they look at each other and they're like, why did you write these things down that we say to you? And I'm like, I wrote this before I met you. And they were like, oh, what? And so I'm just such a fan of really, again, that slowification, slowing down and really deciding what it is you need.
Yeah, there's an underlying. I hear this underlying thing in there that too. I think there's a gold nugget we can bring to the surface about
Mhm.
projecting and attracting, right? Like if you project the negative, you're going to attract the negative.
Yeah.
Um, and if you project like what you're actually looking for, you're going to attract what you're looking for.
Oh, 100%. So when you write a document that's like, I'm never, I don't want him to be doing this or that or whatever, what you're really doing is attracting that opposite. Because that's what I heard this term that I really loved, whatever you shine light on is what grows.
Hmm.
And so if you shine light on bad behaviors, that's what's going to grow. So why not shine a light on good behaviors and greatness and possibility? Because that's the stuff I want to grow. And actually simplicity. Let's
Hmm.
give a shout out to simplicity. It's so great.
Yep, yep. Awesome, awesome. I am like overjoyed because not very often do we get this soon in the interview and all these gold nuggets are rising to the surface. So I just know there's more to come. We have a fill in the blank question that I ask every entrepreneur, and I'm usually surprised by the answer. So here's your fill in the blank question. When it comes to growing a business, I believe the most important thing to keep in mind is blank.
So, we were talking about patience before, and I feel like patience is key, but like you can't just sit there, right? That's not what I mean. I feel like there's so much divinity in preparation, and preparation is actually what will bring you so much. And it goes back to what we're saying about the ready, fire, aim. That
Mm-hmm.
aim is that preparation piece. And like I said, throw some stuff on a wall. Like I'm fine with that. But preparation to me is so beautiful because when we prepare the right way, I heard this great quote that I was like, oh, this is so great. It's like a Ted Lasso quote. So there you go. That we need to prepare, but we need to prepare just enough that we leave a little room for God to walk in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find, like today, you're an amazing host, by the way. Y'all don't know that this man prepares his guts out for these things. And I, as being interviewed, just love this because what does it do? It allows God to walk in this interview, which is so fabulous. But if I had, taken all of your beautiful preparation and I had typed out every single thing that I was going to say, and I like followed it and I just read it to you, well, I just left out God because
Mm-hmm.
it's like that falls flat. And I know all of us have seen
Mm-hmm.
this where somebody has prepared a speech and then they have the thing in front of their face. And whatever they're saying, I'm sure is so wonderful, but it falls flat because it has to be absolutely perfect. And so what I would say is that there's a little bit of preparation. There's a lot of preparation, but then there's a little bit of divinity there.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to leave room for that. Because if you don't, then what you're doing is you're closing out all, back to your nuggets comment, all the little nuggets that are all around you. So
Yeah. Wow. I love that answer. Now I want to get into like what I call the heart of the interview, which is your story. So I leave this totally free form. So you can start like when I was born, or you can start when I was 20. You start wherever you want, and then just kind of get us up to where you are now.
sure, sure. When I was born, I'm so kidding. I'm not going to start there. That feels like, ooh, no, yeah, no. So I did get a degree in supply chain when I went to University of Tennessee, go Vols. And it was logistics and transportation. So I told everybody I was going to be a truck driver because nobody knew what that was. And instead, I did not do that. Nobody wants me driving trucks. I ended up working for 15 years for Fortune 500s all the way down to small startups, streamlining processes,
Mm,
people, and inevitably systems that came a little bit later for productive results, saving millions of dollars for organizations. And I loved it. I mean, absolutely loved it. I will never forget when I was in college, we had this teacher that all of us called Simon Cowell because he would do presentations in this class, and it was like a junior senior level class. He would rip it apart in front
mm,
of the whole class. And by the way, this was the breeding ground for excellence because this man was training us for what was about to happen to us over the course of our career. But I think a lot of people saw it as like brutal. So I remember I had this presentation and it was all on benchmarking. And by the way, benchmarking is basically like, let me see, what Doug does well in his business and benchmark how my business is doing and just comparison of the two. So it was on this specific business case. My group and I stayed up all night finishing this and painstakingly looking at these slides. And each of us had to give a little bit of the presentation. So we go, he tells us how absolutely thorough and wonderful this presentation was. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So then he goes down the line with each person about how they could have spoken better, how they could have been louder, or clearer, or whatever. He gets to me and he says, you were born to do this. And I was like, I can die now. I can die now. And I've thought about that comment so many times because I'm like, what did that actually mean? Did it mean that I was born to give speeches or to streamline processes and make it simple for people? I've thought about it a lot. I think it actually means all of those things, but I think we get these beautiful little, green lights in our lives. Quoting that book that was written a few years ago, so good, by Matthew McConaughey. Such a good
I just
read.
read that over the summer.
So good. Green light, 100% green light. But I ended up using all of those skills in the 15 years that I was in supply chain. But then, as I was telling you, I went through this period where, when you're great at your job in the corporate world, they give you people. Well, I was chewing them up and spitting them out. So once I figured out, yeah, you were born to do this your way. And I did it my way and I streamlined everything. Everyone on my team started bringing me people in the company and saying, you need to teach this person things, and this person, she's going to go figure out your career for you. And my team said, you should be a life coach. And I said, that's not a real thing. Like, I have 2 business degrees. That's not real. But enough of them said it that I was like, all right, if I can do something accredited, where I get some sort of certification, then I will do it. And I ended up finding Tony Robbins Madonna's program and got board certified with them. And it was like a fish finding water. It was like, oh, now I understand the streamlining and all of this, but then the language to bring the people into the processes. And what I just find most fascinating is during all of this, we had a layoff at work. And I felt so fortunate that no one on my team was laid off, not a single person. But there was a cubicle. I had an office and my office was glass, so you could see through it. And I knew that nobody on my team was being let go because we had an all hands meeting for the upper management. So I just felt very unaffected, which sounds so terrible. Just because it's like, oh, my team's safe. Well, at 8 o'clock that morning, I get to my office and the man who was not on my team that sat in the cube right out front of my office was tapped on the shoulder, taken downstairs, and never returned. And I stared at that empty cube all day. And I wondered, where did he go? What did he do? Did he have family? I knew just from knowing him personally that he'd been through a divorce. So I'm picturing this man, on the side of the road or something by himself. And I'm sure that wasn't the case. But I just thought, this is horrible to watch these amazing human beings treated like numbers. And, like I said, I'd been getting this push to do something else. I mean, everybody around me was telling me, but I was terrified of, not having that steady paycheck. But right in front of me, I saw, was it really steady? No. At any time, I could be tapped on the shoulder as well. So I did what most people would do. And I went home, drank 2 bottles of wine. I'm 5 years sober now, but I drank 2 bottles of wine, woke up the next day feeling absolutely terrible. And I went in my backyard. Something said, go in your backyard, like just go in your backyard. And I live on a lake, like it's beautiful. I took the day off, by the way. I was like, I cannot, they were going to be firing people again, another wave. And I was like, I just can't watch that. So I just sat outside and cried and prayed. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. Help me. And I swear to you, I heard, I've been waiting for you. And I was like, oh,
That is awesome.
okay. And so I decided in that moment, I didn't want to be a victim of being a number and getting let go, but I also wanted to help people that felt like they were victims of whatever,
Mhm.
of the corporate world, of their businesses. I mean, it's just so common for us to feel like the world is not, for us. And so slowly but surely, you know, told my husband, like, I need 18 months. And he said, I give you 12. I know you can do this. And so I said, if you give me 12 or 18 months, I think I can match what I was making in the corporate world. Doing
Mhm.
what? I have no idea. I was going to figure it out. It was fine.
Mhm.
He said, no, I'll give you 12. In that time period, the company that I was working for decided to give our bonuses to us about 6 months earlier than they'd ever given them to us.
Mhm.
And I took that as a sign. And I
Mhm.
remember sitting at the company meeting where they were like, we're giving you your bonuses in March. I texted my husband, I was like, they're giving in March. And he's like, as soon as that check hits your bank account, that check was going to allow me a year of freedom to not have to make money, and really figure out this whole process. So that was in 2017. I left that in 2020. I was featured in Forbes for the work that I've done in my business. I've helped over 2,500 people and businesses. And I realize now my original dream was to help 100 people. And I realized that was small, but it got me out the door. It got
Mhm.
me here. And I realized I'm just warming up. I mean, there's just so many more possibilities. And so, what I also love is helping small businesses, the ownership, helping an owner. You end up touching about 50 lives in a small business. And the reason I say that is because you've got the owner, you've got the owner's family, you've got every employee in that family of those employees. So you touch so many lives when you help a small business. And when a small business stays open, because 75% of them fail within the first 15 years. We love to talk about the first 5, but let's go all
Mhm.
the way to 15. I want to switch that. I want 75% of businesses to surpass the 15-year mark, because when you buy something from a small business, it sustains your community better.
Mhm.
It gives jobs to your community. It really is the backbone of our nation. And I feel so strongly that if we had more small businesses, we would be more connected. And so and it's all simple. It does not have to be hard. So yeah, that's what led me here.
Wow. Wow. I have a couple things based on your story. The first one is what when you heard the voice of God say, I've been waiting for you, do you feel like you delayed? Like there was a point earlier that you could have made that transition.
Oh, 100%. I
Mm.
mean, I feel like, so there was this other strange moment that happened uh, prior to this, and it was maybe a few weeks before. Like I said, I'm all about preparation. And I was in my kitchen doing meal prep. I always meal prep on Sundays. At this point, my daughter was 4 and she was still taking naps. Love a nap. Uh, Nobody in my house does this anymore, but they're old enough that it's fine. So she went upstairs to take a nap, but she had it on some kids show.
Mm.
And it changed into a movie that I had never seen, nor did I care about, but I had chicken on my hands. So I was just like, I'm just going to leave this going. It was this terrible movie about this little girl who is going to Paris for the summer. Her entire family is going to Paris for the entire summer. Like, what? So I'm just poo-pooing this movie the entire time, but I'm not changing it. And
Mhm.
I'm just meal prepping. So there was a part in the movie, inevitably, where the girl goes and works in the pastry shop and makes a big mess and goes to find her mom. And they have this heart to heart. And they do this whole Paris montage after, and they're eating baguettes and like wearing berets, and it's so cheesy, right? They're at the Eiffel Tower, and it hits me like a ton of bricks. So the part of my story that I didn't tell you was that because my group was so successful, I started standing up supply chains all over the world. So I was tasked with, and it was amazing, right? It was everyone's dream that could ever imagine what I was doing. But I was missing everything in my house. I was missing everything. And so I'm sitting here watching this movie, tears rolling down my face, chicken in my hands. Is my daughter at that age going to want to be with me? And I think the answer would be no, because I wasn't there. And what if she went to Paris? Because I wasn't going to be able to go to Paris for a summer, and she has something happen to her. Who's she going to run to? Because it's not going to be me. So the Eiffel Tower became this thing for me where it would be something that I would see in a moment where I would start to question things. It would just show up. It was very bizarre. So after that moment, I was telling my husband about leaving the corporate world. And I said, I can't, I don't know, maybe now is not the right time. This is before the bonus was announced. And we were at a home goods store, and we were in the lighting section, just looking at lamps and stuff. I literally almost ran into floor to ceiling, lit up Eiffel Tower.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, got it. Okay, good. The week before I put my notice in, same thoughts came in. And I had just ordered some pajamas from Amazon for my daughter, and just happened. I mean, I was deep in those, like, now's not the right time. I know this big bonus is coming, but there's a lot of great things happening at the company. I was trying to tell myself I needed to stay. And I opened this package, cute little pajamas, and this company gives you a little postcard with their pajamas. And it was an Eiffel Tower and a heart.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. So what is also funny is a few years ago, I decided to pivot my business and change the model around. And I was terrified to do it. So of course, I prayed a lot. And what I find most fascinating is when my pivot went down was when Netflix decided to introduce the show Emily in Paris. So
Wow.
I was like, all right. So I just keep following that because I know it's a sign to just tell me to stay the course. And it's really interesting because my daughter's 12 now. And this past weekend, we spent time together. I was telling you, like the boba and coffee, we were doing that this past weekend. And there was this new little store where we live that's like French inspired. And they had like desserts, and she loves like French desserts. So we walk in this store and we sit down, and she is telling me everything in her life, friendships and all these things. And I'm just sitting here like loving every second of it, just relishing it. And I look up, and there are Eiffel Towers literally all around us.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be in all things, in my business, in my personal life. And I mean, that's just been my guiding light. And then of course, this summer I just thought was so fascinating, everything being in Paris, because my business exploded over the summer. And so it was like, interesting. So I've really enjoyed that.
Nice. Maybe we'll talk about something else, but one of the other pieces that stood out to me was the bonus happening. And I think there's something tied to being obedient with Christ and him blessing your obedience, right? And showing you the path forward. Do you believe the same thing?
I don't believe in obedience. I believe in trust.
Okay.
And I believe when you trust the path, when it does not make sense to you. And I will tell you right now that if I look back on what I thought I needed and what actually occurred, very different things. And it's so much better than I could have ever imagined. And there was a trust factor there. And I truly believe that I showed up and said, I'm doing this. I trust the divinity that's in me. And another thing that's happened recently is I do a lot of, I don't pray per se, it's more meditating. And the reason I say this is because what I found is it's the stillness of the practice and waiting for God to show up in it that actually really aligns with me personally. And what I find most fascinating is I've gotten a lot of "come find me" messages. And I believe that to be the divinity in every single person that exists on this earth. Everyone is divinity, but we are sometimes fighting it.
Mhm.
And so I think one of my roles is to unmask the divinity in those people and help them find the right people around them that also unmasks their divinity, and then it just explodes their businesses.
Yeah, we're above angels. A lot of people don't get that. Our hierarchy is above angels. It's a beautiful thing. I want to, because I'm on this journey myself with my prayer life, is like hearing the voice of God, and just what you said, being still. I think some people, especially when newer Christians and things like that, they just think they see other people pray and pray usually these same prayers over and over. But I think we don't take that verse in the Bible. I don't know exactly. Be still, and know, I think, is what it is, right?
Mhm.
But we don't take that time to just be still and listen. Like, we're sending all our requests up, right?
Mhm,
But
mhm,
we don't take the time to stop and listen. And I have been more intent on shutting up and letting God speak, right?
mhm, mhm.
So yeah, thank you for bringing that to light.
Most definitely. I think it's really important. I think we were given two ears and one mouth for a reason. Sometimes we forget that.
Yeah. So now we're going to divert just a little bit, go back to business. So I want to know, what is the secret to building a business that grows sustainably without sacrificing your personal life?
Well, it goes back to a lot of things we've talked about, and I love an acronym. I think it's easy to remember. And for me, it's stability, but actually it's all built on the word stable.
Mm,
And this is really for business owners that have employees. And when I say employees, I mean contractors. You have anybody in your business doing things for you. It could be you and an admin, a virtual assistant. It doesn't matter. You have to build a level of stability. And it's actually very simple. Why this matters is because when you put these things in place, the business starts to run and get momentum, and you aren't as like in the center of it, which is amazing. Because when you're the center of it, then you're having to do all things
mhm.
and you'll have no free time. But instead, again, really loving the divinity in everyone, you'll see it. So, stable is the word we're working with here. The first thing is seen. So, seen meaning that you provide a safe space for your employees, your contractors to voice concerns, to give feedback, and you act on it. So, it's one thing to say, "Hey, Doug, tell me about what's going wrong." And you're like, "I don't like the coffee in the break room." And I'm like, "Oh, that's so terrible. I'll get that looked at." And then the coffee continues to be terrible. Well, you really didn't see that person, did you? So, really seeing them and understanding what they need to do their job well is part and parcel of it. And it's really that simple. The next one is trust. And this one, I said this before, trust is so important because you've hired these people. And whether, again, it's a contractor or it's somebody that works with you, as an employee, when you hire someone, you are saying, "I trust my business with you. I trust that you are the talent that you say you are." But we don't ever show it that way. Most of us micromanage. And
Mhm.
we're like, "Oh, I'll do it this way and this way and this way," right? Which, by the way, when you hire somebody, I teach a 90-day onboarding process. It sounds intense. It's not. So that people feel supported. But what I want you to do is trust that these people are going to do an exceptional job, and trust that they have everything trust that you've given them everything they need, those SOPs, that guidance, the verbal feedback, and also let them fail. It's
Mhm.
okay. As long as you are not a doctor, most likely the things that happen
Yeah,
in your business aren't killing people.
right.
So let them fail. And then another thing about trust is honor your word. So if you want your team to show up at a certain time, you better be there. If you want your team to act a certain way, you better be doing it too. All of that builds trust. The next one is ability. So trusting their ability and letting them run their zone of genius. So again, you hired them because maybe they're good at marketing and I'm a supply chain person, or maybe they're really good at organizing things, or maybe they're really good. I have somebody on my team that does our data analytics. Oh, shout out to Aaron Laircy. You are amazing. Get out of the way. Trust in their ability and let their divinity show through with that. And owning that ability and saying, that is our ability on this team. Let me make sure that I'm supporting you in everything you need, but you are the zone of genius for this. So I think that's incredibly important. The next one is boundaries. So as a small business owner, this is your baby. And I don't know about you, but my baby cries sometimes at 2 a.m. and I'm thinking about it, right? And I'm loving it. Your employees and contractors are not doing this, nor should they. It's fine. But we have to honor boundaries with ourselves as well. If something actually happened at 2 a.m. in my business, I'm sleeping. I'm not answering that. But we need to give our team boundaries and be okay with that. So clear communication on how long a task is going to take, that's boundaries. So if I'm like, oh, Doug, this is going to take 5 minutes when it's like a 5-hour project, that's really misalignment of boundaries. And then also making yourself available on their time. So my team is all remote. And so it's very important for me to know when people are working, just so I can say, hey, I'm available if you need me, if you want to jump on a huddle together, if you want to do a quick Zoom meeting, I am here to support you. That matters. I don't want to just throw tasks and then again, going back to that ridiculous 2 a.m., but it happens. Somebody, you get an email at 10 o'clock at night. Oh, this work you did for me isn't great and I need you to fix it. Well, where were you when they were working? You just made this harder for them. You're not honoring those boundaries. And then loving your team. And the L is for love, which I think is a very intense word that we're all afraid to use in the business world. I do not mean hugging people. I do not. I actually mean loving people in the language that matters the most to them. Some of your teammates really need that FaceTime. Some of your teammates need, maybe a little more money or a gift. You will be shocked at how a $5 gift card can just blow somebody's mind. A candy bar that maybe you send in the mail, something like that, but again, it has to be their love language. And then of course, those words of affirmation. I've had people on my team that are not words of affirmation. And it was so helpful to know that, because then I wasn't sending them a note and telling them all the great things, because that's like falling flat. I was sending them a gift card, or I was showing them, here's a little bonus at Christmas or something like that. And then finally, for the stable team and the way to actually make your life easier to have this work-life balance is enjoyment. Enjoyment matters so much, because you should not have to go to work and not enjoy what you do. You should make a place that is fun for your clients, your teammates, and most importantly, yourself. Because if you hate what you do, that trickles down into your family, everything, absolutely everything. And so I want you to have fun. I want it to be fun. I actually have a sign that's sitting right here that says, "This is so fun." Sometimes I look at it and I'm like, not today. But normally it's fun. In fact, it usually snaps me out of it and reminds me, oh yeah, I chose this life. I get to do this. These problems are here because of things I created. And I am so lucky to have that and have a team around me, and really enjoy the fact that the team that I've built of just amazing human beings. I feel so blessed. Oh yeah, this is fun. So that enjoyment factor is really important. So again, in order to have this balance, I want you to have a team that feels seen, that feels trusted, that you honor their abilities and you get out of the way, that you honor their boundaries, that you love in the way that they want to be loved, and that you create a place of enjoyment.
Wow. So many things that I could pull from that. I'm just going to start at the end. Passion, right? It is amazing when you have passion and you love what you're doing, how that infects the rest of your team. Like they will like jump off a bridge for you, not literally, but they're going
Yes.
to war with you. They're willing to go to war with you. But where it doesn't seem like you're just doing the motions, going through steps, that's how you're going to project to them, and that's what they're going to do. Just kind of go through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants to work at that place.
No, and I think we've all known people that have read a book and they're implementing the steps. And it's like me taking a dance class. I have no rhythm. You can show me the steps, but I'm like this. I'm like, okay, and I'm wobbly and I do not look like I'm having fun because I'm having to concentrate so hard that there's no joy in it, right? But when you see those like competitive salsa dancers, those people look like they're having a blast.
Mhm.
And that's what I want work to be, is not something that I read and some set of rules that I feel like I need to follow. I need to make sure that people feel seen and trusted and all of that. But oh my gosh, let's have fun while we do it.
And the other thing I want to point out is not just for your team, but think about your clients on some of those things, right? Like I
Oh yeah.
remember when I started my business, we started as a web design firm. And when we had those clients that did not honor what we were really good at, right? And then they wanted to basically build the website themselves. They're like, why'd you hire us?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's so amazing when you let go of that, like if the client were to let go of that, it's always usually better than what they would have expected. Um, or of course, they could have done because they're not the expert. That's why they hired. So,
It's so funny you say that. The clients that I've had the most success with, the business owners, are the ones, I joke, and Jerry Maguire, I think there's a scene where he's like, if you tell me to eat Wheaties, I'll eat Wheaties, you know? And I have clients like that. And it shows that they
mhm.
have let go of expectations and they're like, you tell me what I need to do. And I love following up with them the next week. And they're like, oh yeah, no. I got off the call and I did all those things. And so now here's where we are. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And they're seeing such great changes and profitability. I met with one guy yesterday who was on vacation with his wife going golfing. And I was like, yes, you are. Because he'd put all these things in place and he's like, we've never been this profitable. And I was like, yeah, because you didn't let go. And so it's just so beautiful to witness.
Nice, nice. Uh, I know you said you worked with over 2,500 entrepreneurs. What's the most common mistake you see them make and how can they avoid it?
Throwing money and people at problems.
Mm,
So what I mean by that is, oh my gosh, there's a software that will solve this problem. I'm just going to buy it.
mm,
And then it might solve the problem, but you probably need to set it up correctly. And there's, again, that preparation piece and really doing the due diligence. Is it right for what we need? The same with people. Oh my gosh, I'm so busy. I need to hire 3 people, 5 people. I don't know, some mythical number. People make up these numbers. They haven't actually
mhm,
done the due diligence to say probably just one person. And maybe they could be part-time.
mhm.
What they actually need, again, slow your roll, slow it down. What do you want this business to be? And then what are the people and processes that need to be in place? And what are those types of people that you need? And then go do. So don't just run out and hire people willy-nilly. Those become very expensive paperweights. Don't just invest in a system because every entrepreneur you know uses that system. It might not work for you. For instance, over the summer, I implemented very simply a text messaging platform that nobody uses. And it's so much easier than all the other ones, and it's so much cheaper. And I was like, this is hilarious. So I think that we have a lot of Me Too in the entrepreneurial world, or
Mhm.
the shiny bauble, and we all talk about gross revenue. So online, when people are like, I make millions of dollars, y'all, they are not talking net profit. They are talking about this gross mythical number that is not real. And the reason I say it's not real is because every business has expenses. Every
Yep.
business has overhead. I want to see your net revenue. Give me your net revenue. And
Mhm.
I think that is amazing all day long. So I think throwing people and systems at the and money at the problem versus sitting down and really getting right with yourself, like I did with that dream job exercise, right? The dream person. What is it you want? Start there. Don't throw money at it at first.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you mentioned this because we sell software, and I had a conversation with a potential client like not soon before this, and there's churn. There's lots of churn in the software industry. And the reason there's lots of churn is because people buy software that they either don't need or they don't know how to use. So whenever I talk to a client, I'm like, let's set it up for your business, right? So that I know that everything is there for it to work for you, right?
Yes.
I'm not just going to give you a blank canvas because you're not an expert in setting those things up, right? And you're
Correct.
probably just going to let it sit on a shelf like a book you don't read.
Right. Exactly.
And so, yeah, so I'm just glad you brought that up because it's only as good as what you put into it, right?
And you've got to slow down
Yeah.
and do it right. If you implement a software correctly, let's say it takes 60 to 90 days to get it implemented properly. That sucker could save you hundreds of thousands of dollars if it's done properly the first time. But here's what we do. We as business owners say, oh my God, but I am so busy. I need to make sure I'm serving all these clients. Right. You go do that. Hire experts that will update you on the process, that will give you like real time every week. What's the update? Where are we on this? What questions do you have for me? They are in their zone of genius, putting this beautiful thing in place for you while you were in your zone of genius doing your beautiful thing. So
yeah, awesome. So how do you advise business owners to align their operations with their faith and purpose, especially when making big decisions?
Well, it goes back to exactly what we were talking about. I think we get mired in the details and the busy, right? On a daily basis, the average person, I'm going to make this up. I don't know this, but I think the average person checks their emails, I don't know, 100 times a day. I think this is pretty accurate. It might be less than that. I know like I pick up my phone about 82 times a day. I know this because my phone tells me that. I think it's around 82 or 89, depending on the week. So that's a waste of time, right? That's a complete waste of time. So I feel like we do this in our faith too. It's all about simplicity. We think we don't have time for things. So if we sit, we have about, honestly, like 9 minutes a day. If you just sat in silence and said, what would you have me know today? Sit in silence and start there. It's amazing what comes up for you and how it centers you and puts you in the right headspace for your day versus, I don't have time for that. Let me go check my email for the 37th time. We've created all of this noise. And I will tell you that simplicity and silence, oh, they're going to get you more. They're going to get you so much further ahead. So that's how I incorporate faith.
Oh, I love that because that's what I'm incorporating now. And I hear you 100% in that time. Like you can make the time for things that are a priority, right?
Oh my gosh.
And what more of a priority is your relationship with God, right? So my first thing with this was fitness, right? I will make time to go work out because health is important, like fitness is important to me. Well, isn't my relationship with the Heavenly Father important to me? So if I can set aside 30 to 45 minutes to work out, why can't I set aside that time or more for my faith, right?
It's so funny. I think it's these little habits that are so easy to not do. And then all of a sudden, if you ever feel any anxiety, if you ever feel any worry, I will tell you that both of those are calling you back. They're basically like, come back to me. I'm right here and I can help you. And you've lost your way just a little bit, and I'm here. I'm here to help you. And every time that bubbles up for me, one, it's actually very comforting now that I've realized that's really what it is. But two, I'm like, oh yeah, I let that dwindle. That little thing that made me feel so good, I just stopped doing it. It's funny how we do that.
Yeah. it's funny because I use the Bible app every day, and the verse today was Philippians. I'm not sure the exact verse, but be anxious in nothing, right? So, and then what was crazy about that is you talked about the Eiffel Tower thing. Maybe I'm feeling a little anxious about something because then there was a video that I saw of I think it was a worship leader or something saying that exact same verse about anxiety. It was crazy. So I guess I needed that message today.
Yeah, I think you should go do a little prayer on what would you have me know today? Because
Mhm.
sounds like there's something there and it's all good. Like it's
Mhm.
always all good. My
Yeah.
husband was laughing at me the other day. Uh, we were talking about something and he was like, everything for you is always a good sign. Like you're never like, well, that's a bad sign. And I was like, right, because everything that happens to us is happening to make us better and to actually either teach us or, give us a little boost. And so yeah, I don't think it's bad. Now I
Yeah.
do know there are horrible things in this world, and I don't want anybody to think that I don't believe that, everything has a reason and all of that. But I do believe in the goodness of people. That's
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. So one more question about your expertise. What are the key factors that help business owners focus on high impact actions over simple day-to-day things?
Well, I will tell you right now, as a business owner, what I want you to do is I want you to get out a piece of paper. I want it to be very small because it is going to be small, and write down the things that make you money, because that's what you need to focus on. That's it, right? What makes you money in your business? It's not spending an hour in Canva creating a beautiful image, unless, by the way, that you sell those to people. It's probably not, painstakingly looking at an email for 10 hours. What are the factors that make you money? And by the way, every single person in your business also is making money for you. There is an ROI to everyone. What are they doing? This list should be small. It should not be a lot, because about, Pareto's principle, about 80% of the things we are doing don't matter. 20% are where the money is, where the activity is, where the fun is. So one of my main pillars is simplicity and stripping it all down and finding those in a business and saying, this is it. This is it. I'm helping a business right now who owns a bunch of businesses. And it's taken a while, but he's now seeing, oh, it's noise.
Mhm.
And this is the business that's actually fun, profitable. I put $1 in, I get $3 out. And so we're in the process of selling the others. He's nervous. I love nervous. It means you're going to change.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm like, oh, give it 90 days and it will explode. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really just keeping it simple.
Awesome. We have a planner, and in the planner we have every day, what are your three needle movers, right? And usually the way we teach it is those are revenue generating activities. Might
Mhm.
only have two, but what are your
Mhm.
revenue generating activities? And those go on your planner um, as your priorities, right? So
Yep. And I love that you said that, because on Sundays, my needle moving activity is preparation. I was telling you about, the Eiffel Tower thing, where I was meal prepping. Well, I still do that. And on Sundays, what my needle moving action is to make as many decisions on Sunday so that I don't have to do those the rest of the week. So I save that energy. And so we make about 270 food-based decisions a day. I make all of them on Sunday.
wow.
And then I look at my meetings, I look at all my agendas, I get all of that prepared, and I actually schedule out all of those emails. So all those decisions are done. It's so great.
Yeah, it gives you a little margin in your week too for things that happen. Right.
Exactly, because that's the other thing, is that when you prepare, something's going to happen and you've still got space to kind of, be flexible and not be like, oh, I do not like time blocking a calendar for this reason, because inevitably something is going to happen. And I work with a bunch of businesses like roofers, HVAC companies, mechanic shops. They cannot time block, because there's a point where, a roof might have a leak, or somebody's AC unit broke, or who knows. And so I want you to have flexibility in your week and not be like, oh, I just lost those 2 hours that I had dedicated to blah,
Mm,
blah, blah. And so I can never get back to it. So that's the other thing that preparation allows you to do, is really have that flexibility.
yeah. The other thing is, just the last thing I'm going to say on this is, I don't think of those things just as revenue generating or money makers. They're momentum makers, right?
Oh, 100%.
Because when you do the things that are driving the revenue, you're going to drive momentum.
Amen. And momentum, you get that. Oh, it's so beautiful. And that's what I love when I start working with business owners, is they're all like chomping at the bit. Okay. Okay. When are we going to see results? When are we going to see results? And I'm like over here sorting puzzle pieces. Right. And then about, like I said, like 60 to 90 days in, they're like, whoa, okay, here it is. And then it's not just them, right? They start to see their entire teams picking this up and doing these things. And I'm like, yes, this is it. So that's
Nice,
key.
nice. Well, thank you so much, Emily. This has been like, I just feel like a downpour of golden nuggets.
Oh, thank you. That
Yeah,
means so much, Doug. And thank you so much for having me. It's meant so much.
nice. Well, I ask every entrepreneur, because if they have any wisdom left to share, they usually do, and they get off the podcast and they're like, Doug, I really wanted to share that, and you didn't ask me that question, or so this is your chance. What words of wisdom do you have for the parting entrepreneurs? Not parting entrepreneurs, but the viewing entrepreneurs.
Yes, for sure. You have the right skills. Every single thing that you need is right in front of you. I think that every business owner is Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz,
Mm,
who actually had the key right on her feet the whole time. So do you. But the thing that you had that Dorothy also had is she was surrounded by people that helped her see that. So understanding your God-given talent, and then seeing the helpers that are all around you, because there are helpers all around you. That is beauty. And what I do as a business owner is I just help you take those blinders off so that you can see your feet and you can see all the people around you. And then you make more money too, which I think is really awesome. So that's really it.
nice. Well, how do people find out more about you? Where can we send them? What's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah. So I love a quiz. I just love a quiz. A quiz to me helps me just sort of see where I am. Maybe it's the YM 16 or 17 magazine in me from like being a kid, where they're like, what's your favorite color, or what this means about you? Although my quizzes are better than that. So I find that most business owners want to work on all the things at one time. And you and I both have mentioned several different times about focus, the ready, fire, aim, and all of
Mhm.
that. And so, what I want to offer your audience is a chance to, in 8 questions, figure out the one thing you need to focus on in your business that will keep more money in it and amp up your productivity. So if you go to emilyhawkins4u.com, that's Emily Hawkins, the number 4, the letter u.com/performance, you will have access to this 8-question quiz. It's very short, little assessment. You will get a diagnostic PDF, and it will share with you the one area that you should focus on. What happens if you don't, because I think that's important. What happens if you do, because that's always fun to see. And then the 3 shifts you can make today that will actually keep more money in your business and amp up that productivity.
Wow, that sounds like a ton of value. We'll put that link in, if you're listening to this, in the show notes. If you're watching this, it'll either be in the description or in the comments below. Thank you again, Emily. This has been awesome. I hope we continue to communicate and be friends. I feel I try to make friends with everybody that comes on my podcast, because I try, you attract people that share the same values and
100%.
things. So thank you so much. And until next time, entrepreneurs, keep moving forward.